Welcome to the stage, founder and president of Prince Concepts, Philip Kafka.
Hey everybody.
So beautiful.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. I am a Detroit resident. I live here, not originally from here, so welcome to Detroit. I have the great pleasure of introducing a friend that I met almost about 10 years ago. And I prepared an introduction here, but he came up to me about 30 seconds ago and goes, you know what? All my slides, I'm not using them. So in the spirit of Kulapat, who I'm going to introduce in a second, I'm not going to use my notes either. All right? The first thing you'll notice is that there's a stereotype of an architect, okay? Typically, they wear all black. You're about to see in a moment that Kulapat shirks every stereotype of an architect from that first one. And you're going to see that very quickly. Beyond this improvisation of an introduction, I will say that the man has a playful spirit, a fun spirit, and that manifests in projects that are phenomenal around the world. If we were to say that at one point in time, the cathedral was the ultimate sign of what an architect wants to design, or at another point in time, it was banks or office buildings, I think that today it's safe to say that the museum is the building of our time. And this gentleman right here is doing great work, some of the most significant work in the museum design space. He just completed a significant renovation of the Metropolitan Museum, the Met Museum in New York City, is going to be working on the Louvre as well. And but that's just a small part of what he does. And that's why I got rid of my introduction, because I realized that's a tiny piece of this very intricate puzzle, who is Kulapat how do I say your last name? Yantrasast. And he is the director and founder of Why Architecture Form. You're in for a treat.
Thank you, brother. Well, thank you, everyone. I decided not to use the slides because I felt that my talk is design the life, not the form. So throw away the form. Right, so one thing that I want to start, and thank you, Philip. So I'm trying to do the talk short so that I can have a chance to talk with Philip, who I know for 10 years, but have not met for 8 years. So this is our get-together. So I'm here to talk about the role of architecture and how we can help you, and how the role of architecture that we think is maybe changing. So let me give you the background. I was born in Thailand, lived there for 20 years, and then grew up in Japan for 15. So I went to school and all of that background there. So I can't help thinking about these two cultures in its own way, right? Thailand, many of you have been to Thailand, I hope. You know, it's, of course, we know about Thai food and Thai cultures and other things. Thank you, David. You know, very difficult client right there. And I think, you know, Thailand is a tiny country, you know, in Indochina, which is between the two sumos, which is China and India, right? So when you're a small country like Thailand, it's like, you know, sitting in the middle seat between two giants. You kind of like, you know, behave. Think about centuries in middle seat. Right, so you have to learn to adjust between the giants, influence and things. Japan is like the gentleman over there in the back seat, all the way to the whole road to himself. So he has all the time in the world, spreading out in an island at the edge of the Pacific, and then keep distilling, refining, take influence from China, from Korea, refining. And that's really kind of what I felt is so important to think of culture in that way. And you couldn't see this better than in food. Right? You know, Japanese food is we all love sushi, right? It's about distillation, purity, clarity of thought, one flavor at a time, depth, and all of that, right? Because it has all the luxury and the time to do it, the refinement. Thailand didn't even have time to do that. Influence coming all the time. And so it have this funny mix of all the flavor at once, all the ingredients at once. You know, Philip here with Brad, his partner chef, had an amazing restaurant in Detroit that you should try. It's very authentic and very creative. But that's what Thai food is. It's all the mixing. There's no real sense of originality. It's Chinese, Indian, everything. But what you get is everything all at once. sweet, salty, spicy, and all of that. Right, so I can't help thinking about this, and what I'm saying this, working a lot in culture, is that culture today is moving from sushi to pad thai. And what I meant by that is that it used to be so exclusive. One person make decision. This is the taste of the century. We're gonna do that. You know, of course, Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead. Right? We all love that story. How amazing romantic that is. One person, no compromise, didn't listen to anyone at all, and just gonna do this. And I mean, I'm burning the house down because I didn't like anyone to compromise my vision. Oh, how beautiful. And so tragic at the same time. But the time we're living in now, there's no one person. Look at the room here. We're so diverse. Who's making decision? Who's making culture? Right? So the architect moving from this oracle, know-it-all genius is moving toward something that I would call a conductor. Right? We are the conductor of this idea symphony that the society needs. Right? Everyone is thinking about, like, there's no one that say taste should look like this is what culture should look like that. How can we bring everything together? Not just architecture. Architecture, in my sense, is the big sister, right? Because we are hosting everyone, just like in here. Right? We're hosting painting, sculpture, music, ideas, and all of that. We are making place for everyone. And sometimes, you know, around maybe 150 years ago, you know, we all get divided between all the art forms. And then architecture also want to be its own referencing. That architecture should be looking only at architecture and nothing else. And architects either become a sculptor or a business person. So I feel that this is a time that we need to think about how architect in this new role can come to be places. And when I work, you know, back to Philip's introduction, when I work with culture, I'm trying to create that place, that culture meet people. I'm like the matchmaker, allowing art and people to connect. So my job is to make art look good and inspiring and make people feel comfortable. Right? When they get there, my job is done. I'm kind of in the back of the room, enjoying everyone's, you know, having their own interaction. So that has been my thought, you know, both at the Met, which just opened last year, which is wonderful. It's 10 years in the work. We're working also at the Louvre, which is at the new department that just started, which is open in 2027. We're working all over, and I think I'm such a privilege to be to work with culture because I think, you know, culture perhaps is one of the reasons why we want to live longer. You know, I think I did a talk around 6 months ago, similar to this, to a lot of group of tech investors, and that talk is called the Anarchist Vampires. And the thing is, we want to go to the moon, we want to live in space, we want to live forever, but why? Right? What's the reason to want to live longer? Because when you think about that, vampires are actually us. Or we all want to be vampire. We want to sleep, we don't want to go into the sun. We go out at night because the sun can really age us. We drink blood, which, you know, a lot of people are doing right now. And we live longer, but we're super lonely. No friends, no culture. So if you're going to become a vampire, you have to be an anarchist vampire. And culture is a big part of what makes worth being vampire. So I feel that if we want to live longer, let's plan why and what makes it worth living. Right? Culture, curiosity is what we focus on. And museum is a way, maybe, you know, museum in America has a sense of intimidation because it is a temple, right? You look at this grandeur architecture because it was a place where timeless knowledge exists. But I think the way that I would like to propose is museum is like a gold mine. You don't have to like everything. Use it as this kind of like a thing you can mine your own interest. You think about what you want to do, you know, deepens, it reflects who you are and many other things. And for that reason, you know, I've been working a lot in culture, helping culture and commerce combine together. Not an isolated culture aspect, but how can you create a place where culture and commerce and people live together in a very sustainable way. And culture in the broadest sense, including food, longevity, medical, music, performance, art, so forth, right? The mixture is very interesting. So in some sense, I'm not typical in the sense that I'm not waiting to decorate the box. Like I'm wanting to interest in what inside the box, and do we even need a box? Maybe the content can live in a park. Maybe content can live in other things. I'm very much into hybriding everything together. I feel like the old times, like what Philip mentioned, way back when, the temple was the icon, the bank was the icon, the post office is the icon. These isolated building times are now dead, right? People are interested in hybrid functions, culture, commerce together, leisure and work together. Office building, they do not only what for work is dead. No one wants to go to that kind of place anymore. Right? So therefore, this idea that architects are now working with everyone to be able to bring not only just design, but engineering of what place look like. And of course, the pandemic teach all of us to think about what matter to us in our life. So that's kind of what I perhaps want to do, the intro. And now I would like to invite you so that we can have a conversation. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Should we get the chairs there? What do you think? Oh, we can stand.
Yeah, we can stand.
Yes.
You know, what do you think? You look great standing up. So,
Thanks.
Just context before I start asking questions.
Do you know what he does? Maybe not.
Quickly, because this is about you. But
no.
So,
I'm introducing you now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I know him when he was in New York, which is what, 12 years ago?
Yeah.
Yes. And he was the first people. He was in the business of running billboard program in Soho, on Prince Street. That's why his company is called Prince Concept. And he was the one who came out to Detroit, what, 12 years ago?
Yeah, in 2012.
Yes, and say, hey, this is an important space, and really start building one by one, beautiful, very thoughtful investment that really infill into the communities, the restaurants, right? With that and coffee shop and housing and other things, very innovative. So I've been a big fan of Philip as well into the placemaking, but you have your session tomorrow.
Yes.
But anyway, it's just the introduction of how we engage into each other.
Yes, thank you, Kulapat. So it's true, I'm a developer here in Detroit. My background, though, I studied philosophy, and so hearing about what Kulapat has to say from that perspective is very interesting to me. So the first question that I want to begin with is to understand a process. I love the way you talk about a hybrid, and if you showed images, I think it's a great move that you didn't. Everybody has a phone anyway, and you'll Google him.
Yes.
You see a very playful human, and the harmony is that his buildings are very serious in a sense, or they can seem to be, but they work in a way that's flexible and playful. My question for you, when you think about these buildings and you design them, are you working from a laboratory, and is it science? Are you seeking some sort of truth, or is it more of a studio, and is it art, and are you seeking to help yourself and your client express something that's totally unique? Do you think that architecture is going in both those directions at once, or one more than the other?
Thank you. Well, in the office, I talked about success. What does success look like to us, right? It comes to VIE, which mean life in French, right? VIE. Number one is value on investment, right? You have to bring value to the client, to yourself, to the intelligence of investment. When you build a museum or an opera house, it is a cultural event of a city. You take money from other thing else. So that has to work. It has to give, that's a V. I is the impact, right? What kind of impact are we talking about? Is it the city? Is it urban development? Is it community? Is it people that use it? So that's one thing. And E is the excellence, which is, are we moving the needle on our profession? Do you have any ideas that have not done before? So all these three need to exist in that level. We need to bring values to us too. We have to make profit. We need to be able to stay in business. Otherwise, we'll be dead. We're not a nonprofit. And so with that, I feel one thing that I always talk to my staff is that architecture, the power of architecture is the power to shelter and the power to glorify, right? You can glorify dictators, which architects always get used to glorify dictators. You can glorify a church, right? But in this time, would it not be better to try to glorify the sense of humanity connection, right? And how do you do that? It doesn't matter what building you do. It can be a house, it can be a museum, it can be a park. But if you think about your message, your glorification, how do you use your power to celebrate what, right? And in this time, I feel like I love, I gave an interview to New York Times, and I said, my goal is to make an architecture that makes people like each other. And I feel like it's becoming such a big subject because there's a sense of distrust since the pandemic. There's a sense of alienation, there's a sense of fragmentation that a lot of people are not trusting. I mean, it's also comes with density, with other things that, being things. So I would love to be able to use architecture to create a sense of empathy, a sense of like allow everyone to want to be together, which I think we could do.
Beautiful. It's interesting with the way the world works today. 99 out of 100 people will hear what you're having to say and they'll say, that's phenomenal. And then a developer will go and an architect will go and they'll design something that all of us will look at and say, how the hell did that happen? A good building and a bad building cost the same price, cost the same effort. How do you begin to actually communicate? Because people will hear what you're saying and they'll agree. How do you actually, when you're sitting down with a client, begin to communicate your values and help them understand how to truly express it? Because we see that everybody nods their head and everybody likes the ideas, but nobody really knows in our world today how to put them into action. How do you inspire clients to do that?
That's a very good point. Everyone deeply believes that good design is expensive. That's all what we think.
It's not.
They all think that green buildings are expensive. They think, that's the thing. Oh, the question you get is like, okay, well, how much more expensive if I do this, right? It's like, no. If you plan it wisely and early on, it's the same price. But we talked about before too, the best way, you cannot convince anyone. No one wants to be convinced, but you can show them what examples look like. When I work in museums or development, I insist on us taking a trip together. We look at museums, we look at these, if you curate the examples, these are hopefully intelligent people, right? And they're like, oh, they come to their own conclusion. Like, oh, I get it. This is what it is. You can spend 10 years trying to convince someone. It becomes ego against ego. It doesn't work, right? But when you open your eyes, like, let's go to see this building together and that this building, I want you to see how this is working. It's not my design, but I want you to feel what that is. And bit by bit, people really open their eyes to that. I think, you can call it education, but it's really not only just the investors, but even the users. I work a lot with children, right? And I mean, children like 8 to 18, for example, and I want to empower them to design the space they want to design. But it doesn't mean they know. Right? The only thing they can do, and of course, you know more than them, so it's not me against them. But if you empower them, it's like, hey, let's go look at art studio together. If you want to be an artist, let's go to see recording studio, let's go to performing spaces, let's talk to professionals and all of that. And quickly, they go back home and do own the research, and quickly they know more than me, right? And all of a sudden, I was like, well, we think that's the right thing to do. I think that process is so necessary in our profession. Because as I say, the project is only as good as a client, right? You're a good client, so that's good. But I think that's something that we can call it, community engagement or like co-creation, which I think it's a cliche word to use, but I really mean it because when it happened, when that co-creation happened, it felt like you're playing music together. Yes. It's just so beautiful. Everyone's jamming together. It doesn't mean that you're making the best music, but it's a sense of being together. It's so meaningful.
And is that definitive of your work? We talked about this outside as well. You talk about music. Is it true that a great project in your mind today, because things can change, manifests more as jazz than it does as classical music, where it isn't that you have a strict piece of sheet music that's written and somebody must execute it perfectly? It's more responsive. You're listening to your environment. You're listening to your client. Is that the way you kind of see it?
I think so, but even classical music have its own flexibility. Right, I think the most important ingredient in architecture is curiosity. Because if you don't have curiosity, why build something new? Right? You'll be happy with a house that everyone built already. But if you're going to go to the trouble of building your own identity through a building, you must have curiosity to think about who you are, who you want to be, how can this project allow you to be someone that you have not been yet. You want to be able to look at yourself as like, wow, I go from here to here. Yeah. This journey is important for me in my human beings. I built my own house. I hated in the beginning. I didn't want to build my own house at all. I was like, oh God, this is not. I was trying to find anything. I couldn't afford anything. So okay, well, I had to build my own house. That process of building my own house completely turned me into a better architect because I now understand my clients. I understand like anxiety of making decisions, not only just design, but like, what kind of water filtering system do I use? What kind of power system do I use? Do I need this? Do I need that? When you want to be an intelligent person building something, it takes 1,000 decisions you have to make, right? With that, I think we all kind of in this that you can learn a lot from other people.
Would you say that the defining characteristic of your work right now is a true expression of curiosity? If somebody goes to one of your projects, are they going to be able to sense that curiosity and lack of ego?
Well, lack of ego, I'm not sure.
Those are opposing, aren't they?
No,
curiosity is a type of humility.
So. I don't think ego is a bad thing, but again, ego is like glorification, right? Yeah. What are you meaning? If your ego is to make people like each other, I think that's okay. But if it goes like, look at me, look at me, look at me, right, then it's kind of unhealthy, right? But I think, if anything, okay, let me tell you one story which is meaningful to me. So my mentor is Ando, who's a very well-known architect, Japanese, super brutal, concrete, and all of that. And my first project ever was a museum in Grand Rapids, Michigan, not far from here. And I had to use concrete on that project because I know how to do it. And I know how to do it not expensively. I've been working on it for 8 years. I know exactly what to do. Right, and it has to be a LEED Gold building. At the time, there's no LEED Gold museum in the world. So that had to be the first one because the donor insists on it. Right, so I built it out of this concrete. It looked how beautiful and things like. I was like, oh God, everyone's going to think I'm copying Ando because it's concrete. And I work with Ellsworth Kelly, who's an amazing artist, who's a very, very good friend, who passed away sadly. And we commissioned a big sculpture in the lobby. And so he came for the installation. He was so surprised how big the museum is, blah, blah, blah. And we went to dinner together, having some wine, And I asked him, on a drunken dinner, I was like, well, do you think people would think of this as an Ando-like project, right? And he said, no, it's very different. Even though you use concrete, he's Japanese. It's all about controlling. Like you walked in, there's one window, you look out, you see a tree, right? Everything is choreographed in a very precise way. You're from Thailand, you're very generous. You allow people to look left, look right, you can turn this and turn that. It's a very different experience.
Yeah.
And that, for some reason, it allowed me to kind of it's a license to be me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it doesn't matter whether it's concrete or stone or glass or whatever it is, but the space. And I take it as a license to be generous, to be open. So that's, if you ask me, I would say that would define my style.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's because so many people associate architecture with materiality, and material is just basically the choice for how you express one part of a large project. So when I sit down with an architect, first of all, I have a rule. I'm going to ask you a quick question, then I have a follow-up that I always ask an architect when I'm thinking about hiring them. First is, I have a rule where I don't want to work with anybody that I don't want to have dinner with. It seems like you agree with that. Is that right?
It depends on what dinner.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I think it should be fun.
Yes,
right?
Of course.
Working on anything, it should be fun. It should be lifelong learning together.
Yes.
There's no assholes necessary in anything. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
And so the question when I end up having that dinner with an architect and I ask them is, I want to understand, it's like any deal. The first question I'll ask, and I will push to get a real honest answer. When you're working on a project, what is your non-negotiable? What is the thing where somebody could give you a dream project, but then they say, but you have to do this for me, you have to do that for me, or the project has to do this. What is your boundary where it's like, I just can't feel good about myself representing a project that does that? Do you have a non-negotiable when you sit down and you work?
Can I tell you tomorrow? No, I don't know. I'm very curious about that, right? So I work on projects that the budget is way below what but I have such a hopeful feeling that it will make it work. I can get this done this way, we can get donations or whatever. A lot of the nonprofits we work with are not that grand like the Met or the Louvre. Some of these places are pretty small, like East Palo Alto or other. We don't have a lot of budget. So I feel like, okay, well, maybe we can help them get in-kind donations or whatever, right? So budget is definitely not a non-negotiable. I think vision perhaps could be, if I have a client that says, I want to build a house to impress my friends, that would perhaps be a no to me. Like if someone doesn't know why certain things should be done, maybe not on the first refusal, but I was like, well, let's talk more about that. I'm like a shrink.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, hey, this is a moment for you to know who you are. Let's think about that. And I believe that most people that have come to ask me, I'm already honored. Like, wow, out of nowhere, you ask me to do this. Either you're completely different or you just want something different. right? So I feel that, so in my case, back to your question, I don't think I have a hard no to anything.
Yeah, that's. I mean, your openness is a defining characteristic of your work for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess it's always interesting for me to know: are you having fun? Are you enjoying yourself? And is the process redeeming for you? And how do you avoid when you have stress and you have pressure of? I always say with architecture, it's one thing to be an artist and create a painting. Nobody has to endure the indignity of a bad painting. Okay, but there's only so much earth. And there's only so many projects that can get built on this world that we have. Do you feel the immense pressure, and how do you find fun and play, because your work is playful and you're very playful? How do you continue to find fun and play throughout this process of making world-class buildings?
I think, by letting things go, right? By being playful, you already start to understand where people come from, right? And I think I'm having a lot of fun because I've been working in this business for 30 years now. So I kind of understand, like, these are someone I can collaborate with. And it's a real collaboration. It takes a long time to build something, right? Design, construction. But I recall a few times when I resigned from projects midway, and sometimes my own staff was like, "What's wrong?" I said, "I can smell trouble," right? And it worked. Like, because I know that it's good to say goodbye before things become dragging and become painful.
Yeah.
So I learned it through the lessons too, and I think that the client was, my staff was like, "We're going so well, we amazing, beautiful design. Why you so, And later the staff said, "You're right, because now I understand." Because either the client was trying to do something that, in our business it's difficult too, because sometimes the clients would like to think that they're designing themselves, right? We just like the surrogate. We're just like allowing to build this baby, and it's like, "No, this is my baby," right? So that happens, which is okay, as long as a sense of, eye wide open, like what's going on in this, right? But there's a lot of ego and other things at play. So I definitely try to minimize my tension by having to go through that kind of process, yeah.
Would you say that when you're thinking about a building, you've talked about space. Light is also something that's light. To me, the holy trinity of architecture is space, light, and landscape. Are you constantly, do you have your own holy trinity in design? And do you have the things that you're always trying to express through your curiosity? Do you have things that it's just like, I just always feel the need to look out of a window and see green or see blue? Do you have like some tenets that if we look at all your projects, we're going to see a consistent baseline, so to speak, throughout your music?
I think, this is where my Thai roots are showing, right? I'm really cannot be in a contained space for too long. I really love the indoor-outdoor. I love courtyard. It doesn't have to be green per se, as in a park or something, but it has to have that sense of almost like a flow. If you're Chinese, you might call it feng shui. But the sense that you can actually go in and out of space, the wind flows and things like that. So as I get older, I really stick to that, like proportion of space, light for sure. Light and space is definitely my key. And whether it's an abstraction of a courtyard with no trees, but maybe maybe nature manifests itself as in light and wind. Not just green, but green would be good too, depending on the moment, yeah.
You've designed parks, haven't you?
We do. We have a big landscape department too, and led by our director, but I work with him very closely.
The museum you did in Grand Rapids was the first LEED museum ever, is that right?
Yes, it's a LEED Gold, opened 2007. We didn't do, the park in the front was designed by Maya Lin, who is amazing American sculptor. As part of that. So we have a landscape that about her project, but she has a separate park, which is we designed together between the building and the park.
Do you think that a greener project is one that focuses more on the LEED certified green materials, or one that is surrounded by a forest that you maybe designate as part of the design? Where do you think we're going into greener territory? Is it with technology or is it with intuition?
Well, I think the LEED program is the first step, towards that, right? There's a lot of things that are very score-oriented, It may or may not be the best solution, but at least it's not people to think about, okay, let's compete on this. Let's move to things about environmental concerns and things like that. And now there's so many other measuring systems that allow them to happen. But it's, in a simple way, it's like food, right? It's ingredient.
Yeah.
Are you using organic ingredient, recyclable? Are you using too much energy? Are you recycling your water? Are you intelligent about your air conditioning systems and so forth? There's a lot of things that go into this. So at the end of the day, it's like common sense, it's like food. Because in the beginning, when we were doing the green buildings and so forth, it's only maybe 15 years ago, everyone think, oh, green buildings look ugly. That's what they think, right? And now no one question healthy food. Healthy food is delicious too, and actually the same price with everything else. Now too, I think integrated green is what we should be thinking about.
Yeah.
Because when you think about early on what ingredients, where they come from, how you process it, is it recycled? It doesn't mean that more score is better, but it allows you to form your decision towards something that's you, which is healthy and also intelligent.
Yeah. I love that analogy because I often in my work, I always say that drywall is the high fructose corn syrup or canola oil of construction. It's something that basically, it's something that's put together that isn't really real, that gives us the concept of space and tries to represent something else but isn't real. I'm trying so hard to get away from inorganic materials in my body and in my projects. Mm-hmm. You seem to have that same sort. I mean, when you work with concrete, is it liberating in a sense to already have that taken care of? I mean, in America, it's different with code and such. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And a follow-up to that, you work all over the world. Mm-hmm. Like, how restrictive or free is working in America? Do you see that the way that our country works, does it allow you to express more of what's inside of you or less?
America is like a big wedding cake, right? No one cares what's inside the cake. Everyone cares about the icing. Right? So the icing is everything. Nice. It's about the icing, it's about the whipped cream.
Yeah.
Right? So like when you look at this building, this is an old building, but when you look at the new houses and things like that, it's quite terrible. And that's why we all have sick building syndromes and other things, right? But at the end of the day, we clad it with stone and wood and beautiful materials. Everyone care about what's outside. But now I think it's changing. People think about health, people think about the body in a different way. Of course, it's trained in Japan. Japan is all about the honesty of the structure, right? So concrete is a meaningful material because it tells you how it's made. It's like a pound cake, right? There's no icing. So when you cut the cake, you know exactly how it's caked, what layer it is, whether someone pay attention to it. Everything is in that. So I like a concrete building because when it goes to it, I can read it. Yeah. I can read like, okay, someone pay attention to this, the pour, how high, the rebars, what's the aggregate, what's the formwork, right? So all of this is telling you that love story of tectonic, of architecture, which is now losing because everything insists on drywalls and whipped cream. Yeah.
Totally. It's totally true. I love that. So do you often find as a creative, even beyond your role, architect's one thing that you are, you're a human first. As a creative human being, do you find, we're talking about food, we're talking about music, are you able to, if you hit a wall on a project, designing a museum, designing whatever it may be, a public space, any sort of building, if you go into your kitchen and you cook yourself dinner, can you find a solution for architecture? If you fiddle around with something else that you might enjoy doing, whether it's picking an outfit from your closet, doesn't everything, or is architecture isolated, and are the solutions to architecture existing within the practice, or are you able to always find solutions for what your architecture challenges are in your regular life?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, what I do is I look at a lot of art, right? And I listen to a lot of music, I watch a lot of movies, a lot of time with no reason why. And sometimes, maybe most of the time, I'll be working on a problem, and all of a sudden, something I saw 10 years ago came back. Yeah. And you have no idea what it is. So I feel like it's not easy for you to have a problem and trying to look for an answer, whether in food or in art. It has to already be in your head, percolating in the background. And thank God something kind of bring it out. It's like, well, when you kind of ask yourself, okay, I'm looking for something that have this sense of abstraction, the proportion of this and this, and somehow, the AI or whatever in your head, it's like, well, you've seen that picture, right? It happened to me so many times. So I'm like thinking about maybe that's why they call it an old profession, because because you have stock in your head.
Yes.
Right? And in a way that you don't really know when it's come through. But when it comes through at the right moment, you're just like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Right? So then they move on. And what you're eating today is not helping you tomorrow, it's helping you 10 years after. Right? So digestion in the body is something that we're still trying to understand. But unless you eat good food, you don't have the energy or the inspiration for the next 10 years.
Yeah. Are we having fun?
I think so.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Are we having fun?
Well, okay.
It's weird to have a conversation in front of people, isn't it?
Since my clients sit over there, I want to ask David, because we're in a small room. So with David, when you built your house, please introduce yourself. Yes, and since we work on the house together, what's your inspirations and what you wanted, the learning process of designing your house?
I've been very lucky to work with Kulapat on designing a home in Miami that we're about to start to build soon.
Why did you choose me?
What? Well, you were a friend that I really liked, and you were willing to meet with me. But we had coffee, and in 15 minutes drew my home on a napkin, and it 3 years later looks almost exactly the same as that napkin did that he drew in 10 minutes. So it's pretty amazing. But we're getting ready to start building it, and it's very different than most homes. I'm from Miami. It's all concrete. It's wavy. It's curved. It's got things in places that aren't really supposed to go there. Along the way, there's been a lot of questioning of if what we're doing is right or wrong.
And when you lived there, how do you think the home would make you happy?
How do I think it'll make me happy?
Yes.
Well, it's very well designed for artwork, so I'll be surrounded by artwork. Mm-hmm. And I think it's like living in a sculpture a bit, Mm-hmm. So it's like living amongst art. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be inspiring, and it will be pretty magical.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot. Yeah.
What happened?
Let me ask you a question.
Please.
So you've been here since 2012.
Yeah.
Right? And how many projects you have now?
Probably 15, 20.
15, 20s. And you live in a Miss Van der Rohe house now.
Yes.
And so how is this all happen? What's the secret to that success?
Well, my success is I always say that my intellectual journey here in Detroit is very meaningful. The financial success is still ahead of me. Real estate development is a slow endeavor, and if you're doing it the right way. And I believe that in my soul. So I built 30 apartments, new projects, but planted 1,000 trees. Mm-hmm. And I work in an area that's concentrated. And to get back to the point of the quality of the project, like Detroit forces us to make the distinction of, let's say, in real estate investment versus development. And you talk about wanting people to congregate in whatever it is that you design. That was my challenge. I went to a neighborhood where nobody wanted to be, and I had to build projects and places that made them say, hey, 30, 40 years of telling me not to go there, but that is such an inspiring apartment that I'm gonna sign a lease. Or that's such a great restaurant that I'm gonna go eat there. And so Detroit's really taught me the greatest challenge of real estate, which is how do you bring people, to really be a developer, how do you develop a place, bring people where they otherwise wouldn't want to go? And architecture is one of the tools that we use, to do it. Landscape's important, quality of product is very important. Detroit's been an amazing teacher, and it allows me to truly understand if I sit down with an architect of your caliber, for the most part, there's many things that, secrets that you hold that I don't. And that's the great part of working with somebody who's talented. There's a lot of lessons here, though. It's been great. It tests the architecture to its full iteration. Does that make sense?
I remember when we first met, you were buying this Quonset hut chair from eBay, right? And you're like, we're gonna build this housing out of this Quonset hut. This was your dream. This is 11 years ago? It's like, how is this gonna happen? And you built it, and it's really quite beautiful. The way, it was a kind of interesting vision. And I don't know, maybe the fact that you also maybe didn't study architecture is helpful to you.
Yes.
Because you're not like fixed to the idea of creation, that you have to build something anew. You have an idea that placemaking could be anything. And you really start one by one. I remember going to see like all buildings, like this is going to be a coffee shop, this is going to be studio and things like that. And it happened like after. So I felt it's such an amazing, perhaps maybe because you were at the right time. But how are you dealing with the giants, developers that are coming in, and because that's happening all over the place, right?
Yeah.
The smaller, more intelligent, investor developers doing the project, and all of a sudden, out of town, giants swooped in, get a big piece of land, buy it expensively, build it super cheaply, and leave town. Right? Yeah. That happened all over America. That's why we have so many ugly condos and housings. And not to name anyone here, but anyway. So how do you fight with them?
The way that I don't necessarily fight. I'm more Japanese in that sense. I allow them to come to me.
Aikido?
No, it's not that I fight, but I disagree with almost everything that they believe in real estate.
Yeah.
If you ask a real estate person, most real estate people, I say this with humility, but also confidence, what the product of the real estate is, they would never say the same thing that I say. Mm-hmm. To me, if you ask me what the product of my real estate is, it's space. Mm-hmm. It's actually the absence of all matter. Mm-hmm. It's the thing we already have. Mm-hmm. We already have the best parts of architecture, which is space, light, and landscape. Mm-hmm. And then they build things and they ruin the things that they already got for free. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
And so the way that I always put it, if I'm trying to explain this to somebody, and I don't know if it registers, is that there's sugar, and sugar is a commodity. And as long as the price of sugar is going up, whatever sugar you own, aka mediocre apartments that you own, goes up in value. I try to be in the business of maple syrup. Mm-hmm. No matter what the price of sugar is, the maple syrup price stays consistent, and it's high. Mm-hmm. And there's always going to be a group of people that want to pay for maple syrup and put it on their pancakes, regardless of what the price of sugar is. So to me,
heard about that. That's a very, I'm going to add to my food
right
allergy,
here.
to my pad thai story.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pad thai with maple syrup now.
And all the sugar does, it makes people get addicted to my maple syrup. Because they develop an addiction to they go and they look for a place to live if they exist.
And then they can feel the quality.
Suddenly they come and they taste my maple syrup and they're like, I've got to have it, And that combined with, that's where the real challenge comes in, because, you either have to provide something new and novel for a comparable price to what exists, or you have to provide what exists for a lower cost. There's innovation in both of those. The best work's going to do both. And most developers today are giving people what exists for a higher price. They're trying to deliver something at lower and lower quality for a higher and higher price. And I'm just simply trying to deliver what's new for a comparable price. I only try to make the space better. The space is already free. The space is free, and so I just deftly try to frame it. Mies taught me this. Mies just so effortlessly framed space and light, proportioned it perfectly, put trees outside, and I'm in heaven. So.
Well, you also study philosophy, which is helpful, right? To be able to do that. No, I think it's meaningful. One concept that I always use in architecture is called acupuncture architecture.
Acupuncture?
Acupuncture, like needle. Nice. And I liked it, and I use it in all my historic renovations and museum expansion, like the Louvre and others, because I feel the most important thing for me is that acupuncture believes that the power to change is actually you already have it, right? It's not an add-on. You don't have to inject anything in your body. You just have to realign your energy within your body, just like a city, just like a community, right? Like exactly what you say. Every ingredient you need for you to thrive is already within you.
Yes.
But if you realigned it in a way, just like a building, when you look at an old building or old museums, they're all fragmented, circulation, people get lost, everything over the year, expansion, right? So to be able to align that, it's similar to go back to that space, back to that flow, which I think is the essence, the luxury. I mean, like exactly what you said, now space is luxury.
Yes.
Right? Light is luxury. To be able to have that in an uplifting manner is what we're trying to do.
Yes.
Yes.
And that is exactly the point here in Detroit. It's fascinating because the best parts of real estate already exist here. We have the infrastructure. We have the international airport 15 minutes away. We have plenty of space. We have plenty of green, and we have light. We've got it. you know? And it's fascinating because people will
You
come.
also have design too. This design culture here is insane.
There's a history.
Yeah.
We have roots in a place with ideas and design. The fascinating thing is so many developers go to a place and they say, I like this place. And they design a project that has nothing to do with the place.
That's true.
And
That's
we don't
true.
have much time, but I'm going to end with asking you this, is how do you ensure, because I always believe and I always try to push myself to, and you've kind of covered this in bits and pieces, I believe that great projects emerge from a landscape. They come out of a place through listening and seeing. They don't descend. How do you continue to ensure in your work that, because you work all over the world, how do you really quickly understand what wants to emerge, what needs to emerge from a place and a project in a moment in time?
Well, I think the art of architecture, at least the way I practice, is responding. Right? It's responding to what we call in architecture genius loci, which is the spirit of the place.
Yeah.
And the spirit of place is not just geography or biography, but it's about people. It's about, I love places. You know, I feel like like cities are my mistresses.
Yeah.
I go visit, cities around the world. It's like, how are you doing? You feeling good? Like the vibe. You kind of, when I go to places like Paris, London, Bangkok, Tokyo, I walk the street to get the feel, because it's subjective, obviously. But I feel like Paris spring 2025. This is the vibe, right?
Oh,
the
yeah.
sexiness and things like that. And so I really, through decades, trained myself to read into a place and the spirit. That is not just nature, but it's a human. And so when I go to a new project, I'm kind of open-minded, react to it. So okay, well, what am I reacting to? Am I reacting to the sun? Am I reacting to the topography of the site? Am I reacting to, a lot of time I reacting to the eccentric characters of the client, like David, for example, right? So his house, he is the inspiration.
He's an existing condition.
Yes.
You can't change that.
And he's something that is inspiring to respond to, right? Yeah. So in that case, of course, the site is insane too, but what makes that project unique is the spirit of why he wants to do it. That's why I asked him to talk about that. But it depends, because sometimes it comes from the people, sometimes it comes from the site, and sometimes it comes from the community. You can see the impact they can make. Yeah. So all of these depending on how you respond to certain given conditions.
Great. So I think we had fun, right? That was
all
good.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah, you too, man.